I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get a no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard.
Here comes Danny Tuccizola, back to Baker, Baker with the fin. Kurt Baker in for DC, and this may well do it old glory with the try. The New Zealand Sevens legend, Kurt Baker with the cherry on top.
Can you believe it?
Hello and welcome into the On the Line Rugby Pod, a show brought to you by the Believe Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Nagaishi, and welcome in. To all my former viewers of the America's Rugby Pod hosted by Alex Corbacero, welcome back. It's been a long time no see. I'm glad to see that Believe still thinks that America's rugby fans need a voice in this space, and I'm glad to be the person to provide it to you. To all my international fans, never fret. We'll definitely have you covered. I tend to lean more towards Southern Hemisphere content, Super Rugby, the Rugby Championship. But we'll definitely sprinkle in for you Northern Rugby fans, the URC, more Premiership than anything, some Six Nations. And for all you league fans, we'll try to get you covered with some NRL content as well. But, a lot of things to celebrate this week. Among them, the first in-person MLR draft. I definitely think that that's a big step up for a league that's currently in its infancy, to have that kind of platform, to be able to have that production value, to bring in Stabby and the crew to give commentary and analysis and interview the players. It should be celebrated, and I'm glad we finally have that platform as well. But I think we all can agree, the biggest news, at least when it comes to checking wherever you get your rugby news, Twitter or X, I guess, America's Rugby News, DJ Coyle, the Rugby Network, is just that MLR has yet to really rebrand, where ATL and, formerly ATL, what their team is going to be, who their ownership is, and where they're going to go. I think a lot of the picks were announced as MLR and Los Angeles, and to me, at least, that's a little strange, but I think their whole saga actually has been a weird one for majority of the fans, whether or not you're an ATL fan or not. To go from 2020, 2021 with the MLR Championship against the Giltinis and with Scott Lawrence at the helm, to again getting, losing him, rebranding from the Rattler name, and trading away your stars, and then pushing for a move to really that wasn't announced till last week when this was recording. So what can I say, man? It just writes itself. I think this can all be traced back to the founding owners passing and Scott Lawrence's really just big creative differences with the now former, again, ownership of Rugby ATL. It's a sad look for the fans, sad look for the rugby community that this happened. I definitely think that there could have been a community growing in Atlanta that would have kept supporting them and could have kept that lifeline going. Now I really don't know where they will go, who they will root for. I hope there'll be another team in Atlanta. But, for all my former fans of ATL, I guess the only people you can really support is New York, Chicago, maybe Houston or Dallas. You could, I guess, root for NOLA, but that's kind of interesting in their division. But, we'll see. But, Scott Lawrence, the former ATL coach, now USA coach, I think he was the biggest reason why this all started. Now, could the creative differences have been from his move to head coach and GM? Could it have been to whether or not that the league wanted to rebrand them already and he didn't want to do that? Draft philosophy, I don't think we'll ever really know. But, to go from a forward-dominant team who would be a downhill, playing in the trenches, a lot of kicks and restarts, really a set-piece-based team, and then to transfer that over to a team basing entirely on talent, lacking in the set piece, especially in line-out situations, it's something. I mean, Lawrence gave his job up, ironically, to his assistant, who you'd think would have done pretty well. I mean, he was the attack coach that year when they went to the championship. But when you look at the numbers, or at least over this year, it just hasn't been great for him. and hopefully they'll turn it around this year in Los Angeles. We'll see what happens. But I mean, to go from a 89% win percentage at set piece, especially at the line out, to then go to a 49% win percentage at the position, you're never going to win winning footy off of that. And the entire game plans almost looked basically based on keep Ruida Biddle, Tarango Rio Waitokia, and the rest of the gang, keep them moving, keep them managing the game, let it flow through them, open play only, and try to scrounge up what you can in the set piece. Now, when a lot of the teams go in there knowing that, obviously it's not going to end well, and it didn't this year for ATL. Now, did they deserve to leave? No, but I think we all saw it coming. The writing was on the wall. Fans were leaving the stadium a little disgruntled towards the end. And, well, I mean, when you trade all of your stars to Toronto for basically a handshake and a bag of chips, it's not a great idea. And I'm happy for Toronto. They got huge difference makers. I mean, to get Rarita Biddle and Waitokia in that mix, along with a new 6'7" lock, who kind of reminds me of Antonio Gates for all my NFL fans type of player at the line out who can stretch over the line, play big man ball. That'll be something. I think the direction for ATL was different. I hope that they'll move back into that set piece style, but we'll see what happens. Do I definitely think it was the right move to come to LA, though? You see, I don't really know. I personally think that they should have stuck to that Midwest North kind of division, keep the conferences as they are, and just move the team. Now, if they wanted to bring a team to LA, and this was already the plan, hot take, but I definitely think they could have moved the Hounds back to Los Angeles instead. Now, is it stupid to then create a team the year before and then move them to LA? Okay, yeah, you can argue that, and I wouldn't, besmirch you for it. But when you have a team that's basically entirely made up of, former players of the LA Giltinis and I want to say it was the Austin Gilgronis, formerly the Austin Elite, both of them owned by Adam Gilchrist, I think it's plug and play. A lot of the coaches were from both teams. A lot of the front offices is also the same way. And, you wouldn't have lost a lot of, fan base. You could have just plugged and played the jersey, kept the, hell, you could even kept the blue and pink if you really wanted to, but it would have been way easier and a much easier move and adjustment for a lot of the players who still consider LA and the surrounding California West area home versus basically displacing a whole team from the East and coming here. Now, you may ask, where do I think that team should have went? Honestly, I probably would have went for somewhere in Michigan, maybe Ann Arbor. You could put them in South Bend or closer to the D.C., more northern Virginia area. Why? Really, it's just where USA Rugby has been moving their championships and a lot of their bigger matchups. When you have a growing community that now has, the 15s and the 7s national championship, they have All Blacks and, let's see, any other international team you can really think of that will come to America. They play in DC. They play in Chicago. They're having more finals in these northern cities for the MLR and others. They should bring in another MLR team to help grow and perpetuate that fan base. Now, is there a lot of good rugby out there? For sure. The West is maybe, it's probably has the most athletes, but I would say the Midwest and the North definitely has the hardest culture for rugby. They'll show up to games, whether or not win or lose, you have a hardcore, diehard fan base waiting for you. And where else could you go? It made more sense to keep it as is. Chicago's already in the West. Move them, keep them West. Miami's going to be there anyway. East is going to be filled up. Why not put more teams North? But that's where I'm at right with that. do I think that they'll do good? I think that's the problem with a lot of the teams that come to LA, whether or not you're the San Diego Chargers, you're the LA Clippers in the NBA, Chargers in the NFL for all of you who don't know. But there's just so many teams and things to do in Southern California. You can go to the beach. You can, go to a Dodger game. You could go to a Laker game, Trojans, the Rams, go to a concert, go to the movies, go hiking. There's 50 million different things to do in LA. If you don't have stars, you don't have the electricity, no one's going to really care. They move on. You're forgotten about. And I think in MLR standards, with the league this early in its lifespan in comparison to the other leagues around the world, you got to bring in that juice. You got to bring in that star power. Like, for example, the Guillotines, before they were taken off the map, they were trying to bring in, Quade Cooper. They had Billy Meeks. They had Johnny Ryberg, Matt Ghetto, Adam Ashley Cooper, Adam Ash. They had international players. They had stars. People knew them. People came out. They had local talent. Is local talent enough to keep ATL going? I don't know. We'll see. They did draft a lot of LA West Coast homegrown talent, but I guess just to wait and see. We'll see what happens. If they can turn it around, this is going to be the greatest gamble in MLR history. If not, a lot of bad news for you, and unfortunately, it might just be another bust for them. In terms of rookies they drafted this year, LA really hit it out the park. They really swung for the fences, and I think, when you have guys like Matt Antisev from Dartmouth College, you have Nick Hartley, the scrum half, you got some sleepers in that lineup, and they will perform. Hartley himself, a scrum half from Missouri, I believe. I've never watched tape, but the highlights that they showed at the draft really showed off his ability to read plays. He has a great IQ. I think when you look at his ability to take coast-to-coast type of movement, from the hashes and around, movement reverses, that kind of thing, dude can show up and show out. Now, will he start early? He was drafted in the 3rd round. I don't think so. I think it'll really just be Antisev starting out as that Rita Biddle hybrid center, fly half, fullback kind of utility back standpoint, just because of his ability to create plays for others and not just from himself. But I think down the line, you're going to see, if things go bad at the 9 spot for Los Angeles, you're going to see Hartley jump in. He's going to go off. Some other sleepers you got Abe Turpin, one of the biggest boys out there from the Collegiate Rugby Shield. He's going to go to Utah. He's going to stay on the West. I definitely think that he has brought a lot to the show. When you look at his film from the Collegiate Rugby Shield, he's a very physical runner, downhill threat, absolute force on the line. He'll tackle you. He'll rip the ball out. This guy is quick on the jackal. Reminds you, I would say a player comp would be a little lofty, but you have David Pocock in there. This guy will hit you hard. He'll release, get up in seconds flat before the ruck's even formed. Boom. He's on there like swimwear, and he's getting that ball out. Ain't nobody taking him out. I think in the Shield, there was a phase where he had 3 to 5 people try to jump on him, and he still got the turnover. This guy is an absolute freak. And when you combine him off the bench with guys like Isaiah Kruse, who also went to Utah to join his brother Mika, you have Lance Williams on that back end, it's not going to be a good time. You're going to have a lot of physical play from those Warriors out there. We all know what it's like to play at Zion's Bank. It's not a great time, very hostile environment. And I think Turpin from the University of Arizona brings that juice. For where he was, that dude is the biggest steal of this draft, hands down. Another one would be Dalen Denenberg to Chicago. He came from Santa Clara College. Not a great place for, a lot of pipeline talent, but I think when you watch the highlights from his draft film, this guy is insane. You can really just look at him as kind of like a Carter Gordon type of elusive runner from the Melbourne Rebels. Really upright runner, tall, super lanky, but he can make space with his legs. He may not be as powerful as Julian Dominguez. He may not be as fast as Chris Matina, but this guy, when he sniffs a gap, he is gone. Don't give it to him because his goose step is filthy. He lines up a lot of good lines off the ball. You can see him running a lot of dummy lines in his film. Go watch the replay on the Rugby Network again, and you'll see what I'm talking about. His ability to create space and overlaps just with the fact of his longer strides and his movement and explosive game line speed off the line will create so many difficult holes for the Chicago Hounds that they can exploit, especially off the back of Billy Meeks, that Denenberg could be the guy. He could be I would say, easy 14 off the bench coming on moving forward. You'll probably see him in more action later in the year, but as maybe the next 2-3 years goes on, you could see him as a fixture in that lineup. Or even Connor Olvera, he's another guy from the Shield that I got to cover. He went to Dallas and replaced Eric Naposki, who went to, I want to say it was Miami Sharks. And he's just as plug and play as Naposki was. Now, is he as elusive as Naposki? No. But he definitely brings a more physical playmaking standpoint when it comes to off the boot. If you look at some of his scores, you see a lot of dummy kicks, chip and scores. He's really big on finding and managing that space in the backfield. And his straight line speed and the ability to, distribute the ball, skip pass out wide is something that Dallas will certainly love, especially with the fact of their loss of Naposki. They never really had a true electric backfield. I think this year they really focused on that. Did they get a couple forwards? Yeah, but you're not going to win points really off the ball with just downhill movement. You need some boys out wide to make it happen, and they got a bunch and in spades, and I definitely think their academy is going to go well this year as well. Those are some sleepers I definitely think you should look for this year, and I think this will be a great MLR season this coming year. Definitely the identity of the Eagles is something I would look forward to. We've seen a little bit from the European tour because of the MLR. You can really just name 80-90% of that team as former MLR or current MLR stars. And unfortunately, just that team, I really don't see a lot of cohesion and identity with them. And I think that's why a lot of the Tier 2 nations like Portugal and Georgia are picking them to shreds, just because, when you look at Portugal and their game is really all about kicking off the boot. They're really focused on downhill plays off the line out wide. They're very set piece oriented to try to dummy in more Eagles in that sense, and they really did a number off the pick and go. And it was nice and beautiful to watch. For a USA fan, maybe not so much. For an international fan, I thought it was a great clinical showing by Portugal to really show off where they could be moving forward in this World Cup, given that they qualified. Romania did that as well. You saw a lot of cross-field kicks. You saw really just plays in the backfield. And USA just really didn't have an answer off of offense. And Georgia, we all know Georgians, they're big in the forward pack. Their scrum is probably second or third best in the world next to South Africans or the Irish. And they brought it to the paint today, and the USA just took it. Now, is that the reason why we weren't qualified for the World Cup this year? I definitely think so. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to create that identity for the team. And, Scott Lawrence, great coach. I really think he can do that. But I think when you have a bunch of guys that come from diverse backgrounds, you have like a Ruben De Haas who plays more, length of the field type of play. You have an AJ McGinty and a Luke Hardy who are totally different playing styles, and they're running up and down the sideline as if it's a super rugby team. It's not going to work. You have to have a cohesion and a sense of identity that you can always look back on for not only just for when it hits the fan, but, just to keep dialing in what you want out of your players. The MLR has always kind of been the interesting middle child of rugby. It's not really just like Super Rugby where they're, highlight real performances. It's not the Premiership, which is, and Six Nations, which is more downhill, in your face, old school rugby. It's really not anything. They take everything from anything. You'll have teams like New York who like to play sideline to sideline. You have San Diego who will just hurt you with the width of the field and offloading. You have Houston who will play you entirely off a scrum. Very vintage South Africa kind of play with Pote Human. And it just kind of, that inability to have a cohesion and identity translates to the USA. A lot of people have always said the USA has been the sleeping giant of the world rugby. We have the great athletes. We have the ability to push really anything anywhere. We have the marketing, the money, the production value, and for some reason we just can't put it together. Now, can we be that kind of electric, almost what Perry Baker and the Sevens guys have proven for USA? Maybe someday. I don't see it now. Maybe in the next 5 years. The USA needs to focus on what they want to do. Given the breadth of MLR teams who are focusing more on open play and width, I think that's one thing they could go. They're just not hitting it, obviously. They need to get there, or else, you're going to end up like a tier 3 nation. You're already losing to, Uruguay. You're losing to Chile. You're losing to teams who would probably not make it past the pool stages. And the fact that you can't even qualify, and the World Cup's going to be in your backyard in either the next one in 2027 or in 2031 is embarrassment. They need to move forward with a sense of where they need to go and where they want to be. They can never be that downhill type of team. We just don't have the bodies for it. Rugby is still growing in the States, so focus on the open play, realize your potential. You have the lanky, fast athletes who really have nothing going on. Like, only the fraction of a percent make it to the pros, whether it's in track, wrestling, football, basketball. Get these guys out there, grow the league, show them what wide open play is, and let them cook. And if we see that, the USA will prosper and definitely beat everyone's expectations. Do I see them ever getting out of that tier 2 spot? At least in my lifetime, I have no idea. I could see them maybe getting tier 2 and, competing in that Japan, Fiji, Tonga area soon if they get the athletes. Maybe. That I can see. But until then, we're stuck with a tier 3 nation that doesn't know how to handle itself. For my international fans out there, we'll definitely have to look at who's going to be the new Springbok head coach. I myself personally am a South African fan. And with Jacques Nienaber leaving to coach in Munster, I want to say it's an assistant position. The position's wide open for the former World Cup holders. And for all intents and purposes, I don't even know if they'll make it past pool stages this year. So there's going to be a lot of expectations regardless on who's going to fill that spot that Rassie Erasmus and Nienaber left. Do I think Erasmus will come back? Honestly, that would be nice, but I doubt it. He might just want the front office gig from now on. I think it comes down to a very short list of like 3 people that they have internally. I'll add my own at the end, but it's kind of a hot take. As for your frontline starters, you have like a Robert Dupria who coached the Sharks for a long time. You have John Plumtree, who was the longtime Sharks head coach and All Black selector. He just came back. And you have John Dobson, who is the coach of the Resurgent Stormers, who have been wiping the floor with the URC. I just don't see any of them getting the job. I would like to see Dobson get it one day, but I think his inability to get a team to really close out moments in bigger games, like in the Champions Cup, like in the URC finals, has kind of hurt him in my eyes, and I'm sure a lot of others, in terms of his potential for the position. I definitely think that needs to be more championship pedigree, maybe an assistant coach from another team type of vibe to bring into this Springbok team who has relationships with international players that can kind of galvanize the team and bring them back into what they were in 2019. I think really the only option you can bring is Alex Sanderson from the Sale Sharks. I think it's a perfect option. You have a litany of players that he's coached under, at Saracens. He's now the coach of the Sharks. Now, have they won a championship under him? Unfortunately, not yet, but I think he brings in a lot of what that Saracens culture is when it comes to discipline, almost Crusader-like in terms of just do your job, let everything else follow in its own way. He carries that wide open play outlook when it comes to the way the Sharks have played, the way that Saracens have played formerly under his leadership. He has it all. And, the Springboks, I think the world has kind of figured them out, unfortunately, when it comes to just that set play, that set piece, 2 to 3 phases off of that, maybe box kick it, keep them under pressure. That sweeping style of defense, it's getting exposed. Eddie Jones was the first one to really put in that playbook. The All Blacks have done it this year. Australia has done it. They're barely winning games that they normally would be blowing out. It's not going to be a good time if you cannot figure it out as a coaching staff. And Sanderson brings that wide open play, that expansive play that you saw against Australia in that first game with South Africa against Eddie Jones in his first matchup. You saw that wide open play. You saw those young bucks making it in and just pushing the ball wide and letting it go. A lot of these guys from the previous World Cup winners, they're older. Faf de Klerk's, I believe, 29 going on 30. Vermeulen's, I think this is probably his last run. Pieter-Steph du Toit is getting up there in age. You have your locks like Etzebeth and Diager. They're all banged up. You need a youthful look to what the world is moving on to, which is more athleticism and open play. And I think Sanderson is the right pick. Do I think he'll get the job? I have no idea, though. Would I like him, though? Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to see the Bucks succeed long term. And he would be a killer addition if he can unlock the potential of Monty Lebach and the rest of those boys. But that's it for this week. We'll try to get you back, I believe, on Friday. We'll try to keep a Monday and Friday schedule going. And thanks for coming in. Hope to see you next time.